This week, we're continuing Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey, otherwise known as Come Back, She's Hot!
Hi, readers. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Not Another Heroine, the book pod where we celebrate the heroines we love
and roast the ones we don't. We'll be your TBR FGMs.
Fairy godmothers.
And find you the best 5-star reads, the spiciest romance, and save you from the overhyped DNFs.
So grab your favorite drink and get cozy. Welcome to Season 3. We are back, readers, for part 2 of Dragonflight, and prepare for disappointment.
Yep, yeah. We get the switcheroo in this part, and I don't know that I will ever forgive Anne McCaffrey. I have decided I am on a vendetta. I am going
This woman is like 85 years old.
Oh, that's kind of sad. It would be interesting to see why. I feel like I mentioned this like right before we started recording, but I wonder why we have such a strong beginning with like the really kind of like strong fantasy romance like aspects, and then we get this kind of like, nope, never mind, switcheroo. Like, I don't know if it's like that was just the 60s or if it was like marketing publishing thing or like, I mean, if you started out, like, why we're not finished with the way?
I think you can see kind of probably, if I were to wager a guess, because I'm not a historian, is publishing page length limits. Up until like I'd say the mid 2000s to like 2010s, like you had a max and you had to stay under it. I think for like publishing standards, especially in fantasy, like look at Tolkien's books.
Yeah,
like those are books that could be 600 pages themselves, each individual one in the trilogy. So, and that I think happens when you just focus on moving the plot along and not developing the characters as much.
I could see that.
Which is where this one suffers.
Yeah, because I feel like you would almost have to focus on Falar to make the plot happen.
Move. Yeah, because he does so much of it.
Wow.
But, you know, we talked a little bit before about this, is that the things that we don't like about this book, which is we wanted more focus on Lessa, we wanted more character development and live in her head, we want
romance, tension.
Yeah, just more time spent developing that. And that's what Fourth Wing does. It's like you said, it's fan fiction for Dragonflight.
Really, it honestly is. It's just disappointing because it's like, I like Anne McCaffrey's writing style. I like what she's putting down. I am eating it up. But then I get like the whole like switcheroo. It's like you could have had like the OG fantasy romance. It's like, what were we deprived of? This is the worst timeline, honestly. There is an alternate universe out there where this book was the first fantasy romance, and it like delved into like Lessa and Falar's relationship, and we got like a badass Lessa, you know, becoming the queen and like saving the realm, and that led to like an earlier development of fantasy romances. Like, imagine the number of books they have access to that we don't. Like good fantasy romance.
This was probably romantasy for its time.
I know, but it could have been more.
I know.
Yeah. But they hop on a dragon. We get the whole, like, he's sitting behind her. Like, a girl, I love a sitting duel on.
And the whole trope of him, like, seeing underneath her rags to the beautiful woman underneath. Like, we get hints of that.
Yep. And then he, like, they get to the where, which is like a cave, basically. And of course, it's the one that he's staying in. So he brought her into his room, and there's like a bathing chamber, and she like takes a bunch of like showers to get all the gross stuff off. And then she like walks out, and he walks in with food, and he like pauses, and he's like, oh no, she's hot. I love that. And then all of a sudden, these like alarm bells go off that basically indicate that the like little baby dragons are hatching.
Yep. And so he strips her naked.
Oh my God. See, it's there. It's the
and he throws, like, it's not sexual in the slightest.
Yeah. He's just one of those, like, you know, he took a little like sneaky peek.
But also in this world, women are like second-class citizens almost.
Yeah, I was going to gloss over that, but it becomes
they're either a harem like member, or they're a drudge, or they're some like farmer's wife. That's really the only options. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
So he takes her down to this like burning sand pit where all the dragon eggs are, and the queen dragon is dead already. and the eggs are starting to hatch. And then Lessa's looking around as all of these dragons come flying in with the riders, and all of these women get deposited on the sand, and they are screaming bloody murder.
Yep.
Like, oh, they're freaking out because, I mean, if you're not told what's going to happen, like,
Yeah. And you're just, like, surrounded by a bunch of, like, hatching giant dragons, and you're like, "Are we the meal?"
yeah, like, are we the sacrifice here?
Yeah.
And then
And they're all wearing, like, white dresses too.
it's
Like,
very
step too far.
So the big golden egg starts to crack, and then this little golden, not little, because it's the size of a pony, like, breaks its way out of the egg, and immediately this dragon is like crying, and you're like, oh, it's just lost, and then it stumbles forward with its wings and like stabs one of the women with its beak and like throws her across the cave, so the women start screaming even more.
Yep.
But Lessa, upon immediately like looking at this dragon, she feels an immediate connection. She's like, that's my girl, that's my dragon, like
My baby.
exactly. It's this very like maternal, like half maternal, half sisterly, like this is my being. And that's how strong the bond is. And I thought that what this book does very well is create that very believable sense of a bond between writer and dragon. And the dragon voices aren't cartoonish.
Yeah. Because I liked that this bond was like Lessa would be having like a bad day, but then like her dragon would like wake up from napping and she like immediately is like, oh, thank God, like something good in my life. Like it's a very believable, because I feel like the relationship in Fourth Wing between Violet and her dragon is just kind of like paternalistic and like cartoonish, like you said, and just kind of like not friends, you know? But this is like actually like they're like bonded.
Yeah, the dragons in Fourth Wing feel like a device.
Yeah.
Whereas these dragons feel like secondary characters.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's getting a little literary analysis here.
Ooh.
Don't get fooled, readers. We're not here for that.
We are here for vibes.
Yeah. And so Lessa bonds with the baby dragon, and Flair's like, I told you so, and he's like looking around at all the bronze dragons, like, see, this is my girl.
My girl.
I knew it. And then part 2.
Yep.
Fast forward 2 years.
Yep.
I did not catch that on the first read.
I didn't either. I did not catch it until I looked at the summary and it says 2 years later. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's trippy. And that's what I mean. Like, super emphasis on plot moving forward. And yeah.
This was the disappointing, because like I think from a fantasy romance perspective, if this was written like today as a fantasy romance, that 2-year portion, if she pulled that out, that would be crazy, because that's where all of the like romantic relationship development would happen between Pilar and Lessa. Is like you can't just like skip past, because it'd basically be like Lessa and Pilar are like already together. Like you missed your chance to like, this is what you came here for.
All of the tension building is gone.
Yeah.
And we get hints of it that, you know, Lessa in this 2-year span has been in training to become the next werewoman. She's learning the histories and the record keeping and management of like the supplies and stuff. And that is kind of the overlying secondary world issue, is that they don't have enough supplies to kind of feed the dragons, feed all the people in the where. And Lessa is starting to like brainstorm, like, okay, how do we get around this? Because the holds and all the farmlands are supposed to send a tithe?
Okay.
Like taxes. Like I was not certain how to pronounce that word. And the tithes have been becoming less and less until some holds aren't sending anything at all. And what they are sending is like really
shitty quality.
Yeah. And so this is like not working.
Yeah. And then what had potential was that the like king or like were leader or whatever, Ragul, was the previous were leader, but he's still somehow the were leader in this. So like Falar is still like a secondary like subordinate guy. And so Lessa is like teamed up with this guy who's like very like staunch traditionalist basically, and he's like, we're not going to do anything risky, like you just need to like follow all these rules, you need to like listen to like our old tales of the beginning of our world or whatever, like we're not going to do anything crazy, we're just going to maintain our steady path. And she's like, okay, this fucking sucks. And then Falar kind of like pops in sometimes and she's like, hi, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm trying to like break all the rules. And she's like, ooh, interesting. I am intrigued. But like Ragul is like, no, we're not doing
that at all. And so Lessa kind of comes up with this harebrained plot to like, well, I'm pretty and I can talk to all the dragons. So, like, I'm going to summon the brown riders because I can manipulate the brown riders.
Hell yeah.
And she's like, I think you should just start taking supplies. And so she organizes for these brown riders to like fly out on their dragons and just start taking things from those. And like, okay, Lessa, like I see you problem solving, but like a little short sighted maybe.
Yeah. Let's maybe like check the, Viking raiding tendencies here.
Exactly. And this infuriates all the lords and infuriates Flair when he finds out because he's like, I have been handling this quietly, and now it is not so quiet.
Yeah. Because also, like, underlying all of this, basically Ragul has, like, been emphasizing to her, like, all of these traditions. And she's like, okay, cool, but, like, when can I fly on my dragon? And he's like, you don't.
Because you're a woman.
And she's like, what the fuck is the reason that I have this big-ass dragon if I can't ride her? What the fuck do you mean?
And something that we didn't talk about in part 1 is the special ability of the dragons and their riders to go what they call between.
I did not realize this was teleportation.
Freaky, because they describe it as you have to visualize where you're going, you pop into this black nothingness like space, and then like 3 coughs later, you appear in the place you want to be.
Yeah. And it kind of feels like a apparition in Harry Potter land. You're just like, boop, boop.
And so that's what makes the dragons and their riders so powerful is because they can appear pretty much anywhere on the planet in a moment's notice, which is helpful when you're battling threads.
Yeah.
And Lessa also wants to figure out how to go between because she's like, all the dragons can do it. Why can't I do it? Maybe I want to go home and visit the farm.
My old lands.
So she's just kind of bitter and like battling against Argul. And Argul's also got like a secondary motive is like he wants to maintain his status as the were leader. And we know that the were leader is the rider of the dragon that mates with the queen dragon. So until Rameth is the name of...
I believe you. I have no idea.
Okay. So Rameth is the name of Lessa's queen dragon, and she's still like a baby. She's like a teenager.
Oh,
and so they're waiting for her to get old enough to like do her mating flight.
Yeah.
You get icky vibes. So yeah, and that's kind of like in the back of everyone's head is like, who's going to fly Rameth is what they call it.
I don't even know like what happens in this like middle chunk.
Well...
I know there's a lot of like political maneuvering, but I don't know like how we get from like point A to point B.
I think the next big plot point is the mating flight.
That's what I think too, because there's some kind of conniving in the middle, but then we get all of a sudden some kind of like weird secondary feelings of lust through Lessa.
It is such a...
I hate that as a trope. I don't like it. I will say though, I like when it's like not from like a dragon, when it's like they're accidentally like poisoned or drugged, and then like the main love interest is like, whoa, Nelly, like I know this isn't you, like let's get you to bed. Love that as a trope because it's like, wow, and respects consent.
Exactly.
I hate it when it's dragons. I don't like it. It's yucky.
So a lot of the Fourth Wing haters out there are referencing this specific scene when they say that Rebecca Yarros straight up stole this. Because what happens is Falair and his like squadron of dragons are out flying something, they're repairing something, and they are like a long ways away. And even if you can teleport, it does take time and you have to know where you're coming from. And so all of a sudden someone runs into the cave and says Rameth is blooding her kills, which means that she's killing deer but not eating it. She's just drinking the blood, which is a sign that the dragon is ready to like...
I don't love this. I skipped past. Wow, I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's like, you can't let her eat, otherwise she's going to feel too fat to fly. Oh my God. And so Lessa like hurries out the cave, and Lessa is panicking because she's like, oh my God, Rameth is going to do her mating flight. And the only bronze dragons available is our ghoul and this other dipshit. She's like, where the fuck is Flair?
Yeah.
And so she's...
Flair. Where the fuck is Flair?
And so Lessa sends out this panicked telepathic message to Falair's dragon to be like, come back, she's hot. And so Rameth is like killing her 5th deer or something, like drinking the blood. And all of a sudden Falair like strides in. He's like, thanks for the party invitation.
Literally what happens verbatim.
It's so cheesy. And Lessa is extremely relieved that Flair made it back. And so Rameth takes to the skies and she's like, look at me, I can fly, I'm a hot queen bitch. Yeah. And then Falair's dragon
is, like, hunting her,
And
and she's, like, trying to fly away. I didn't love that part.
all the bronze dragons are chasing after the golden dragon, and the golden dragon is way bigger.
Yeah.
She's, like, bigger than all these dudes, and so she's flying around like, "Haha, I got you." Like, they describe the queen dragon, like, putting her head underneath her wing and sticking her tongue out.
Yeah.
Like,
She's like, "Nice try, but
it's
no."
cute. But then Flair's dragon, Menmith that
Manaeth? Maniath?
Man
Maniath?
Man Man.
There's a lot of M and N's.
There's so
M&Ms.
Yeah, so we're gonna call him
Yeah,
Eminem. So
Eminem.
Eminem manages to, like, capture her mid-flight, and so, like,
Yucky.
they twine their necks together, and they conduct their mating flight, and Lessa is like
Is that dragonflies?
Huh?
I know is that how dragonflies
dragonflies?
Yeah. Isn't that how they mate? Because you always see them, like, flying around and they're, like, together.
Well, because they're dragons, we don't know actually how they mate, but one
Sorry.
could assume.
Obviously, you need to know the answer to that.
So Lessa, in the meantime, has become one with Rameth, and so she's getting
Horny. Yucky. Don't love that.
And so she kind of has this out-of-body experience with she's Rameth Lessa, and so she kind of comes back to her body, and she's turned on, and who's there but Flair? And so they go have dragon sex, which is exactly what happens to Xaden and what's her Violet,
yeah.
in the Fourth Wing.
They had sex in this?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
What?
So it's written very broadly.
Okay.
Because it could not be that explicit. But yeah, they go have sex.
Wow.
They talk about Flair waking up the next morning and like, oh, that was pretty enjoyable.
Wow. I totally did not. Because there's a part later where he talks about, like, their first time being, like, savage and he, like, wasn't happy with
this time.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah.
Ew.
So the consent issue is, like, at play here, which is, like, would they actually have had sex without the dragons?
Yeah.
I mean...
See, this is exactly what I said I didn't like.
Yep. And
Ew.
they continue to, like, they are, like, continue to have sex throughout the rest of the book.
Yeah.
They don't have a romantic relationship. It's just like, oh, they're partnered because their dragons are partnered.
Because I will say the way that Flora talks about it, it almost seems like she doesn't, like, she's not, like, totally
into
consensual. Yeah, I didn't love, because the way he talks about it is just kind of, like, yucky. Like, what is... Okay, but sure, yuck. And then basically Falar just uses his position to go full down conspiracy theorist that the threads are going to happen any day and they need to be prepared. And he's, like, reading books constantly. That's basically, like, the next chunk of this book.
And this is the kind of almost... I checked out right after the dragon mating flight. Like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's because Lessa becomes, like, not even a secondary character, like a tertiary.
Yeah. Oh,
tertiary.
Look at you, Katie.
Woo.
This is where the switcheroo happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's fun. It's still readable. And again, if you're, like, a primary fantasy reader who happens to like romance, this book is right up your alley.
Yeah.
And also world building, if that's your jam, this book. Totally. But...
Do we want to shove all of the crazy time travel stuff into part 3 so our readers, you know, if time travel craziness is, like, not really your foray, you could maybe skip part 3?
I'd say that's a safe bet.
Yeah, because it gets real trippy and confusing, and we get both backward and forward time travel.
Don't love that.
Nope. And then we get the freaky, like, spores, whatever, occurring.
There's so much. Yeah. But yeah.
It is fun, though. They did have their whole, like, latitude, longitude, like
discussion,
little, like time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I understand time zones a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, like, that's how, okay.
This is where you get the sci-fi readers in. Like, oh, they overlay some of the science and, like, stuff from, like, recognizable from contemporary stuff. So.
Yeah. But a romantasy girlies, this is probably when you start to check out.
You're like, oh, like, they had the mating flight. Okay, we see where Fourth Wing was inspired. We're done.
Cool. Got what I needed. Anyways.
So, yeah. So come join us next week if you want to find out how this ends.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's kind of fun. It's silly. I feel like this book is one of those, like, good, I need a actual fantasy sci-fi book to, like, legitimize all of my, like, silly reads. This is a good one because, like, by the end, you're like, I just want to know how it ends. And then it gets, like, really sci-fi and you're like, okay, cool. Reaffirm that that's not for me, but I did it.
I have a fun story.
Uh-oh.
What do you say when people ask you what you're reading?
Oh, I lie every single time.
Yes, you do. So I was in a small town bookstore in the Midwest.
Oh, God.
And so when I travel, I like to find bookstores, especially like used bookstores. I like to go and see what they have. And you can tell a lot by like a bookstore
I
by
was about to say, yeah.
like by what they're stocking. And so I walked in and I got the vibe immediately, which like, oh, we have serious books here.
Oh, no.
And so I walk in, and it was super cool though, because the owner of the store walked up, oh, welcome. I'm like, hi, from out of town. Like, well, what do you like to read? And I like, I'm like,
What do you mean? What
I
do
looked
like to
around, I'm
read?
like, I really like Anne McCaffrey because she's really well respected in like the
Yeah.
science fiction and the writing community. And like, immediate trigger, like, oh, you like Anne McCaffrey? I got books for you. So they actually gave me a book.
Oh, wow.
So one of their traditions was like they like to give a book away. So she went out and picked a book for me. It was a really cool bookstore.
That's so cute.
Red Wing, Minnesota, actually,
Wow.
is where that little bookstore is.
Red Wing, Minnesota.
We're not going to talk about it.
Sorry.
But yeah, so readers, if you need like a good cover story to be like, I like to read dragon books, but like
Anne McCaffrey, wow.
say, I'm like, oh, I'm reading Dragonflight, Anne McCaffrey.
Yeah, see, you pay your dues, you get through it, and you're like, okay, like I see like the beginning of fantasy romance, but now I have a cover that's legitimate.
Yeah, see?
Excellent. I mean, I applaud the people that are not self-conscious about what they're reading and like will full on say that they're reading like silly smut. I am not one of those people.
No, but I do love when you like what happened to us, where you secretly find out what the person you're talking to.
Because you start at Anne McCaffrey and then you start to like inch your way over and it's like, oh, and then you get to the like Grace Dravens and you're like, okay, this is my person.
Yeah, and then you start exchanging book recommendations.
Yep.
So
it's the creep, the like, let me start in the like safe zone and then see how freaky the other person gets.
This happened to me on a work trip. I was traveling and there was a gal that we work with who was on the trip, and she was talking to me. So I'm like, oh, you like to read? And I could see the fear.
It's like,
And so, oh, what do you like to read? She's like, oh, I like this. And I'm like, I know where this is going. So I threw out a few testers, and she's like, yes. And then we started exchanging book notes, and I love it. It's the most like every woman can relate to that.
Yep.
Like
100%.
Yep.
So,
So
God, I love it.
yeah. So join us next week for part 3 of Dragonflight. We're going to end with lots of time travel, lots of evil
Craziness.
threads, like the sewing machine from hell.
I was so confused about the fact they were called threads.
Yeah.
I was crocheting at the time too. So like, girl, it was, no idea.
Awesome.
From our shelf to yours.
We will see you on the next page.
Hi, readers. Like what you've been hearing? Check out the Spice Archive at notanotherheroine.com to see all of our reviews and ratings. And if you'd like to support our growing library, find us on Patreon and get access to exclusive bonus content.
If you'd like to just listen, we post new episodes every Monday and Wednesday on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Thanks for listening.